Hello, everyone. So, this is actually a workshop I was planning to do at a Lean-In event organized by Linda Brandt, but I had some technical difficulties and I wasn't able to attend. So, I decided to record it instead. Now, the advantage of recording a recording like this one is that you get to pause whenever you want. And I really encourage you to do just that, to take a pause so that you can take the time you need to reflect and then start again. But on the other side, the disadvantage compared to a live workshop, like the one I should have done at the event, is that you don't get to hear what other attendees share. And that's really something that many attendees really like in those type of workshops. They like to hear that others feel the same, are in the same situation than them, and basically they love to hear that they are not the only one having that specific challenge. So I invite you to check Linda's page on the Luma website, and I will put all information in the details and attend at least one of our events to check that out. I believe most, if not all of them, are free. So please do that. Now, this session is called FAIL, as in failure or first attempt in learning. And it's a practical exercise where I invite you to take a moment to think about a recent fail that you had. And when I say fail, I am not talking about anything traumatic because I am not a health professional and this session is absolutely not equipped to support you in this situation. So think about a recent fail that you had, and then I will guide you through an alternative perspective to help you change how you see that event so that you can move forward with more clarity. Now, this isn't a lecture, but it's a guided reflection where I share my own experience first and then invite you to reflect on your own situation. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Christelle Soto-Suarez. I'm the founder of Pistachio Cassis Coaching, and I call myself a self-leadership catalyst. My mission is to inspire, support, and empower mid-level professionals, especially those who feel stuck, overlooked, or on autopilot, to take small but meaningful steps toward a better life, better career that I think most of us want, and to do that on their own terms. Now, what I'm doing today, it's basically like a free food sample. It's to allow you to experience my coaching style while at the same time, I hope, inspiring you to start taking action. Now, as I said earlier, this isn't a lecture, it's a guided conversation. And the best way to get the most out of it is to actually follow along the reflection. And as this is a recording, you can press pause at any time. I will guide the reflection. I will share my own experience first and then invite you to reflect on your own situation. And this is really to provide you with the space for you to pause, to reflect, and then to look at your challenges from a different perspective. All the while letting your mind wander in unexpected direction. And the goal for today is for you to identify one action that you can do today so that you get going, you start moving forward. Now, when I do those type of workshop, I like to set the scene. So today, the scene is me inviting you to imagine that you are taking a break with one of your favorite drink at hand. So right now, I have a nice cup of tea, which is one of my favorite drink, especially for reflection. And so you're taking that break, and you're getting lost in your thoughts. And today's your thoughts are about that word that most of us dread, the word fail. And you wonder what it would be like if you could see it as something much more positive. What would be the impact on your life? And that is what we are going to do today. So Take a pause right now, make sure you have everything you need for the reflection, and we will get going. Okay, so to start with, I'll invite you to think about a recent fail that you have encountered. As I said, nothing traumatic. This is not the right place for that. So, what a fail that you recently had. Keep that in mind throughout the reflection. Now, my fail is that in the last few months, I feel that I haven't spent enough time on my business. Basically, since I've moved back to France, I haven't done much on my business. And I see it as a fail. So now that you have a specific example in mind, how do you feel about that situation? So for me, for example, I feel frustrated that I am not moving forward, that I've been here several months and I'm not making much progress on my business. And that makes me also feel that I'm not capable of respecting my own plan, of sticking to my plan. And that's another source of frustration. And I'd say a third feeling that is coming up to mind is that feeling of running late because I am not making progress. So those are three feelings I have that are top of mind. There's probably a lot more, but the main feeling that I have about that situation that failed are those: the frustration, the not being able to stick to my plan, the feeling of running late. Now, how about you? How do you feel about that fail that you recently had? And it's okay if you don't have the word to expressly exactly. Just throw out a few words. Even better if you can write them down, just as a note. And again, this is not perfection. This is just about getting things out of your system. And because this is a recording, I encourage you to press pause and think a bit about how you feel or think, whatever is coming up when you have that fail situation coming up to your mind. Now, imagine that this situation, this fail, is not happening to you, but instead is happening to your best friend or to maybe a young colleague at work that you are responsible for. So what would you want them like? For example, you'd like them to feel like they are making progress. You would want them to be motivated to keep trying. You would like them to feel like they are actually learning, etc., etc. So if I go back to my own situation, I would like her to feel like she's actually satisfied with the progress she's made, with all the stuff she has actually done, even if that is not on her business. I would like her to feel aligned with her way of doing things, with her working style. I would also like her to feel a sense of relief that she is dealing with important stuff, even if she's not making progress on her business in particular. So now, how about you? How would you like that best friend, that young intern or young colleague, how would you like them to feel like after going through a fail? What is coming up to you? And as I said, this is not about expressing it exactly. It's just about getting it out of yourself. And if you can write it down or anything else that works for you, even better. Okay, so now that you've identified the feelings you would like the other person to feel after a fail, think about what you would tell them or what you could tell them to make them feel like that. And again, this is not about having the exact phrasing for it. This is just about getting it out of your system. So, for example, if I go back to my friend, what could I tell her? I could tell her to actually look at everything else she has achieved since moving back to France, all the other stuff she did. I would remind her of maybe thinking back at how she likes to work. In her case, she likes to do things one at a time. and not do everything at once. I would also remind her that maybe there are priorities that she has to respect, like all the administrative things that you have to do when you move to a country, all those kind of things. So those are some of the things I would tell my best friend. And as you can see, they're not well phrased right now. I probably wouldn't say it like that to her. I would think a bit more about it. But as I said, the point of today is not to have a beautiful sentence or a lot of words to say. It's about getting feelings and sensation, etc., out of your system. And again, I would invite you right now to maybe take a pause and think about what you would say to your best friend, to a young person going through that phase. How would you reassure them in a sense? So now that you have identified what you would say to somebody else, let's come back to your own situation. And let's think a bit about what it is you could do to say those things to yourself. So, yes, you've just identified a few things you could say to somebody else. How do you say that to yourself? Which is a lot harder, actually. So, for example, for me, how could I do that? I could do that by taking a moment of reflection after a fail. I could do that also by having a conversation with a very good friend who understand those type of feelings. And again, as I have said before, it is not about having the exact solution. It's about getting some ideas out. It doesn't matter if you have no idea how you could make those ideas happen. I just want you to get as many ideas as you can about how you could say that to yourself, basically, how you could be supportive of yourself. So, what are some ways that would help you say those positive things to yourself? Write them down. Just don't limit yourself to what you think you can do. Just be open. This is really where you let your mind wander, actually. What ideas are coming up? Even the strangest, maybe they feel stupid or you have absolutely no idea how you're going to make them happen, or you think you will never be able to do that. It doesn't matter. Just get it out. Okay. So obviously, if we're having this conversation as a one-on-one, this is where we will go deeper and deeper and deeper. But today, this is, as I said, like a food sample, so we will go a lot quicker. So pick one of those ideas you've just had and look at what you can do about it today. So now I'm saying today because it means that you already have all the resources, you already have the time, you already have the energy you need to take that action. So maybe that can be half an hour to do something or just some research online. Maybe you're already very busy today and all you have the time for or the energy for is to schedule half an hour for later on for reflection. Or maybe all you can do today is just set a reminder on your phone. And if that's just that, then this is good enough because you've done something. And this is the point of today's reflection, is to get you to start doing something. It doesn't matter how small it is, as long as you actually do it. Now, the other reason I'm saying to do today is to increase the likelihood of you doing it. Because if I say to do in the next week, I think most of us know what will happen. What will happen is that life will take over and we will not do that action. So let's come back. Pick one of the ideas you just had and think about what it is you can do about it today. So, for example, for me, I'm picking the idea of doing reflection after a fail. Now, I am absolutely not ready to even remember to take a moment after something failed to think about it. What I can do today is incorporate in my daily reflection. So every evening, I do my best to spend a few minutes reflecting on the day. So, as part of that reflection, I can include a question about fail. And that may not even be a question properly phrased. It might be something like, any fail today, question mark, and then an arrow and think first attempt in learning. So something very basic. And today, the thing I'm going to do is to write that line into what I want to think about in the evening. I may not even think about it today. Right now, I'm just doing the question. That's my first step. So, what about you? What can you do today about that one idea you selected? And if you don't know, think about the smallest, simplest thing you can do. And if that's setting a reminder for later, that is fine. This is better than nothing. Or maybe you just ask AI a question about it to get some ideas. It doesn't matter. It's about starting to do something. Okay. So now that you've identified one thing to do today, I would like you to imagine you doing that one action today. And then, let's say next week, you do another action, a next one, basically. And then you keep going and you keep going. And a small action become a slightly bigger action and bigger and bigger. And weekly action becomes maybe twice a week, then 3 times a week. And then it becomes a habit. Imagine how your perspective about fail could change by the end of the year. We are, when I'm doing this recording, it's early August. So there's basically 5 months left. What would happen at the end of the year if you could shift your perspective on fail? Not the traumatic phase, remember that, but on the normal one that we have so often. How would your perspective have changed? How would that impact your life, you having that different perspective, where a fail is not a failure, but more like a first attempt in learning, a learning process? How would you feel about that change? Now, let's look at the other situation where something happened today and you're not able to take that one action you decided on, and you can't take it tomorrow either, and then life takes over, other things take priority, and you never take that one action. And you get to the end of the year and you still view most fails as failure, as negative things, as things that take you down. How do you feel about reacting like this all the time? Now, when you look at those two situations, I've just asked you to imagine, which one do you prefer? Well, if you prefer the one where you are taking action after action and change your perspective on the word fail, I would like you to ask yourself how you're going to keep taking action. So remember, you're taking one action today, but that's just one action. Yes, you are moving, you've started to move, but you need to keep moving. So how are you going to hold yourself accountable to keep moving, to keep thinking, maybe keep doing that reflection we've had today, and then keep taking action? Think about that. Now, before we leave, I would love to hear back from you and get to know what you got out of this session, maybe what you learned, what created a light bulb moment in your mind, etc. So don't hesitate to connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message or email me directly. You will have all the information in the description. And of course, please have a look at Linda's website page, sorry, on the Luma website. I will put all the detail. She's doing great work. I think almost once a month now, she has different events organized via her Lean group. And this is a very empowering moment. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to be in touch with you one way or another. Take care.